Here we go. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time on a beautiful Thursday evening to learn about how noise impacts those that have disabilities. You'd be surprised how many people have actually reached out to me, and you would never think that they have a disability, but they do. And so this is to highlight that conversation. So my name is Ingrid Boudet, and I am the founder of No More Noise Toronto, and we are advocating for inclusive environments that allow everyone to have a restorative and restful sleep with open windows and to have safe and accessible journeys in our cities. So this is a meeting, so you have control of your mic and you have control of your camera as well. I always like to do a little bit of a land acknowledgement. And while I recognize that this has been a land of many nations and peoples for a millennia, I actually don't like necessarily talking about the lines that were drawn on a map. I like to think about how these indigenous peoples lived and listened to the land and what the story was that it told them. The sounds coming from a landscape indicate its health, indicate its biodiversity. And I just really hope that we can eventually get back to not protecting ourselves from our soundscapes, not needing to protect ourselves from our soundscapes, but literally embracing the sounds that we have around us so that we can learn more about the health of our planet and ourselves, because noise is a health issue. Dr. Tor Oyamo actually called it a public health hazard. It's also an equity issue. And tonight we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to introduce Daniella, and so Daniella and I met online, like you met so many people during COVID, and she was participating in a group called Walk Toronto. And Walk Toronto advocates for public space for pedestrians. And she is a pedestrian that happens to be blind. And when I met her, I thought, and I was already on my noise journey, I thought, my goodness, how do you navigate the city? I need to know more. So that started our relationship. And so Daniella, I'll invite you to unmute. And why don't you tell us how you came to be blind, and then also maybe why you participated in the doc.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Yeah, actually, so many things have passed since we met. So how I came to be blind. I was born blind or with a significant visual impairment. I have glaucoma. But I did have some sight until I was 13 years old. Pretty much, I was legally blind. I learned Braille from a young age, but I did have some usable vision up until I was 13, and then I have been blind ever since. I do have a memory of color, therefore the question about the logo.
Right. Yeah.
And in terms of why I wanted to participate in the documentary, after our conversations, Ingrid, about noise and your questions, essentially there was an opportunity. Ingrid told me about the plan for a documentary and the potential for me to use, the potential for the documentary, not for me to use, that the potential for the documentary to help create some sensitivity and awareness and understanding about how noise impacts someone like myself who is blind. And I thought it was a good opportunity actually to create awareness. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and as a pedestrian advocate, as an advocate for road safety, I thought it was something that I could add to the conversation. And that's where we are.
Absolutely. Well, you certainly did. And just for the people that know the process, is that there was a little pitch video that Kat Mills, who was the director, did of me. And every time they showed it to the judges, everybody had a noise story. And I also mentioned Daniella in that pitch, and they were like, wow, we don't think enough people know about noise and about how it impacts other people. We live in a very ableist world. And so this is a way of sharing that. So with no further ado, I am going to now pause recording.
My Well, that was kind of fun to see because it was on May 4th a year ago that that movie came out. And a couple people that are on the screen here were there. And it's amazing because I said that what I want to do is make change. And I didn't know if Daniella and I were the only ones who were concerned about noise, but then I met Bob and I met other people, and there's a bunch of us that are actually really concerned about noise. And we know that it impacts our health, but it also impacts other people differently. So, with that, I'm going to actually just invite Bob. So, we actually have two subject matter experts on the call today, Daniella, and then we also are joined by Bob Murphy. And I met Bob Murphy because he's a advocate for many things, and one of them is actually also for bike lanes. And so and safety on our streets. So Bob, why don't you just give us a little introduction of yourself and why noise impacts you, what has happened to you and how it impacts you.
Yes, good evening. Um, Noise really started impacting my life that I noticed. I happened to have a cerebral brain bleed in 2011.
Yeah.
And what many of us call is life before and life after. And sounds and bright lights were a difficult thing to manage. Right post-injury, most of my time was spent in my apartment because I couldn't handle the noise and I couldn't handle the lighting and the noise in the stores and in the malls and anywhere. And as a previous injury, pre-injury, was an avid cyclist, and cycling and the sounds that we hear is part of the safety, because I have a pretty lengthy safety background, and it's the sounds that what guides us a lot of the times. Uh, I never was able to go to a movie till 6 years post-injury. I can barely do it now. Where I'm located, there's a police station nearby. It's sirens and police cars all the time. Motorcycles, leaf blowers. I have a building that's close to my apartment. I live in a small 3-bedroom apartment, and we're very close to the next building. And my upper window just happens to be by somebody's parking lot. And a gentleman there likes to drink a couple drinks and listens to his car stereo and wakes up the whole neighborhood. That goes on for hours and hours.
Wow.
Anywhere we go, sound affects individuals differently. For me, to go into a bar that's loud or go into any building, it's the vibrations also. City Hall is one of the main ones, because all I can hear at City Hall is I can hear their HVAC system running their air through the vents, and it like rattles. To me, it's like rattling. And even in my apartment, to have my air conditioner going, it's either I deal with the heat or I deal with the air conditioner. So when I purchased the air conditioner, I still had to purchase an air conditioner with the lowest decibels that I could find at the time. And to listen to an air conditioner, in an old building, you have to have that air conditioner on. It's daunting. It's daunting, but it's very exhausting. It's very mentally exhausting. And
Yep.
when I have to deal with those sounds and those vibrations, I get disorientated.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
disorientated, and my balance goes off, and I have trouble with my gait, and it just throws everything out of whack.
Mm. Thanks for sharing, Bob. I really appreciate that. So Daniella, let's move to you here. And I'm going to add you as part of the spotlight here. So Daniela, you and I, when we were talking about how to frame this meeting, and we were talking about the words vision loss and blind and all of that, and I often don't know what to call being blind, or like I feel that there's a lot of us who want to tread very carefully,
Yeah.
but we're sometimes afraid of putting our foot in our mouth. So can you tell us a little bit about, and you wanted to be, you wanted to be called blind. So tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for this, Ingrid, this opportunity. It's I before I answer, I just want to say this is my personal opinion. There, different people feel differently about this, so just recognizing that. In my case, I am totally blind, as I said earlier. So there's, it's very factual. I am blind. I think the reason, I can only speculate, but I think the reason why people hesitate and don't want to offend, or like, oh, am I going to be insensitive if I use the word blind, is because of the colloquial, or like the metaphorical way in which people sometimes use the word blind. Willfully blind to their actions. Oh, it's blind to the consequences, or very negative connotations of the word blind. The politician is
Mhm.
blind to the plight of the people.
Ah,
Why? Why?
blindsided.
Exactly so, blindsided. Like, why the connotation, the negative connotation? Like, my understanding is, this is comes kind of from the Greeks, but it pervades our language. I do have to say also, I was not, like, I cannot claim that I was aware of this all my life. Like, of all my life, I've
Mm.
used the word blind just because it is factual, it is descriptive. But the more I learn, and the more I reflect about language, and there's research about this, and how that use really has an impactful a negative impact on people who are blind, right? Like, if you hear that all day or every day, you're not going to hire someone who's blind or ignorant. They're
Right.
not aware of things. They choose to
Mhm.
ignore things. So like also, you don't want I don't want to be the language police, or that yeah, that people kind of don't know how to interact with me. So instead of saying, oh, don't do that, that's offensive or whatever, like, what I'm resorting to lately is to kind of rephrase whatever someone says, but in a more accurate way. Oh, the politician is willfully blind. Oh, you mean they're choosing to ignore the fact, right?
Ah.
Or the politician is in denial, right? Like, really try to. I think that's why people hesitate without even being aware of it, right? Like, oh, I'm going to offend. Why are you going to offend if, like, you're not creating my blindness? It is a fact of life.
Mhm.
But just also to continue with language, there's visual impairment, which is like an impairment, like any other impairment, a decrease or a severe limitation. I take issue with the word, or like the phrase, sight loss,
Mhm.
because, like, I mean, I quote unquote lost it many years ago. Like, why do I want to continue focusing on something I lost? It's about
Ah.
empowerment, about possibilities, and yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it here.
Wow, amazing. I say this and I say, you've opened my eyes, you've opened my thoughts to so many different ways of thinking about things. So a question, how do you feel? And Bob, I'm going to ask you this as well. But Daniela, how do you feel when you navigate our city? When you get ready to walk out the door, and we're going to get to dog versus cane in a moment. But when you are getting ready to walk out the door and you've got to do this, 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 and this, how do you prepare yourself, and what do you need to do while you are getting ready or out there in order to navigate our city? So I guess the first question is feel. How do you feel? And then what do you do to prepare?
Right. So how do I feel? It depends where in the city.
Yeah,
uh,
right.
Depending on the infrastructure that I'm aware of, and of course the noise, and whether there's noise can be an issue that I'm aware of, or something I need to think about. And how do I prepare? By planning. Planning the routes. Do I know how to get there? Do I know what to expect? Am I aware, or do I need to find out whether there is some construction blocking the route that I always take, or
Right.
right, or if something changed, if one like an accessible pedestrian signal that may not be working, and I may not be able to rely on the sound to actually cross the street. So it's, I think, a lot of planning. um yeah, and I would also say this in particular for me, because of my advocacy work on regarding road safety, and I'm more aware about the statistics more than other blind people. So I think that makes me a bit of a, I don't know if an anomaly, but like I'm certainly more aware and more cautious than some blind people I know, right? Like they
Yeah.
expect that others will, I don't know,
Help them a little bit more.
move or look out for them, and not all everyone does that, and less with people wearing headphones and being pretty much in their own little bubbles.
Right. Yes, they certainly are walking down and looking at their feet or looking at their phone, and they don't recognize if somebody needs maybe a little bit of help, or they don't know how to ask, that kind of thing. But I'm curious, do you feel nervous when you have to leave the house, or is that something that you just, through your apps and through your planning, you you're fine?
It depends where I'm going.
Ah,
I
right.
can tell you, like, if I am going somewhere where the route is more challenging, and we can talk about the talk later, but
Yep.
I will be a bit more anxious about it. As my therapist would say, I have no choice, right? Like I have to do it.
You have to manage it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. So Bob, I'll invite you to unmute here. And how do you feel when you navigate our city, and how do you prepare for that?
Well, I try to prepare ahead. When I attend events, I've been fortunate recently that I've been received funding for a very elaborate pair of hearing aids
Ah,
with extra equipment when I'm speaking in large rooms that I can control the hearing and the background noise. So it's gotten a lot better. Uh, for me, it's if I go out to, let's say I go to a baseball game, it's very exhausting. It's very mentally tiring from all the noise and the jumping up and down and all the movement and just the it's just continuous noise.
yeah,
And it's what I'm doing the next day is if I'm going to go to a function like that, I have to make sure that I'm not doing any meetings in the morning or going out the following day.
right.
Noise and mobility is what I do today will affect me tomorrow, and I have to plan everything that I do along those terms.
Wow. So I'm hearing planning from both of
Oh,
you, and
absolutely.
preparation, and getting ready, and also being prepared for any kind of recovery afterwards, you know. Um, so Daniela, back to you. We had in the doc we saw Angelo, and Angelo's Daniela's guide dog, and Angelo was with you for a long period of time, and then Angelo is no longer a working dog, and so now you've transitioned to a cane. So can you tell us a little bit about the difference between Angelo and a cane, and maybe the learning experience that you've had to go through moving from one to the other.
Absolutely. So for everyone's information, Angelo is still with me. He's my pet, but yeah, he got arthritis and he's retired. So it's a very different way of navigating between a guide dog and a cane. If you think about it, the dog, as you saw in the documentary, like they find the way, they lead you around things, they can find curbs and stairs. So, I mean, the dog can actually see. It's teamwork. Like the person actually tells the dog what to do, where to go, like the directional commands. But the dogs are responsible for navigating around things. When you get to an intersection or to cross the street with a guide dog, they stop, and you as the human has to make the decision. So that's a myth that the dog will cross the street and will look at the light. No, that
Interesting.
but it's teamwork, and someone can see. And I can actually remember several instances in which my dog Angelo pulled me back as I was crossing the street, as I mentioned in the documentary, and the car was a driver making a right turn, was not looking, and Angelo actually pulled me. Physically, they pull you back. So that's very reassuring. And again, someone is there with you. Someone can see. When before I talk about the cane, I want to say I have, I don't know what tense to use, been relying on a guide dog since 1994. So many, many years of being mostly a guide dog user. And I'm super used to a guide dog, and like the navigation is like, I describe it as elegant. The dog can follow people in a crowd, or can, and they can navigate.
Yeah. A cane doesn't give you that.
No. With a cane, you have to do all that. Like it's so the way of navigating is like swiping the cane from side to side. And the cane is essentially an extension of your hand. So you are finding obstacles with the cane, not with your body, which is great, but then you have to find a way around the obstacles. It's not that the dog will lead you around something. That also gives more information. A cane gives more information as that can be helpful for orientation. It's super interesting to transition from a guide dog to a cane, the amount of stuff that I find that I never knew existed.
Really? Because the ball is traveling over the surface of the ground? Where Angelo, you wouldn't get that tactile feedback.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay. Like Angelo moves, or like a guide dog will, guide you seamlessly around things. Sometimes you will, like I will be able to actually hear that the sound changes and there's something there. I may not know what it is, but I'd never touch it. And with a cane, yeah, exactly. Like I touch it. So it's definitely more intense to get around with a cane. I am desperately waiting for a new guide dog. It's not for me. The white cane is not for me. Also, I use not on my own with a cane, I have to say, but with my guide dog, I do use public transportation, and I cannot even imagine I can imagine, and that's why I don't do it. The challenge to, okay, you get to the curb, you get to the subway platform edge, but you have to, with a cane, navigate through people to reach the door in the middle of all that chaos. Like, I'm not as brave.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Bob, you got something to share?
Yes, Daniela, I've been fortunate to with the City Toronto Transportation Accessibility to learn on the ground surfaces and the decibels of the sounds, and how the navigation to center through a crosswalk and what all the different surfaces mean for individuals using a cane. And I think the city is starting to take this a lot more seriously because we have a whole bunch of our community members that have to experience these pathways every day. And those are the experts. But I'd like to ask you a question and when you navigate with the ball, you know where to center to go. You know where you're located to when you go in the intersection, right?
Yes.
From the tactile surfaces,
Yes.
right?
What I call the braille on the sidewalk.
Oh, I
Those
never heard that
bumps.
before. That's a good one. But
Yeah.
how does a dog know how to center you, or how do you navigate the dog knowing that you're going
Yeah.
area across the
Sorry.
street?
So the dog stops near the curb, near the crosswalk, and they are trained to stop there. And you condition, like you reinforce the training with praise or like with whatever rewards, and it's consistency, I would say. Your question is really interesting, Bob, because guide dogs are trained to stop actually right by the curb, right before the crosswalk starts. And knowing everything I know now because of my pedestrian advocacy work, I am terrified of trucks making right turns and mounting the curb, or making turns, period, and mounting the curb.
Absolutely.
So what I am doing, or what I have been doing, and it's going to be challenging for the guide dog training, is actually stopping behind or like before the actual ramp to go to the curb.
Yeah.
To prevent that. But the other issue that happens in Toronto that makes it very challenging, and especially for if you're using a cane, is the accessible pedestrian signals that most of the time you like to trigger the sound, you have to go locate the button, press it for some time, activate the signal, and then you have to go back to the actual crossing area. And the position of the positioning of the accessible pedestrian signals is not consistent. Sometimes they're like 2-3 meters away from the actual crosswalk. So that is a challenge. I think it's helpful and it's better in known areas, but definitely for me, that's a source of anxiety. If I need to go to an intersection that I'm not familiar with, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
where is this an offset intersection? And now that we're gonna have protected intersections for cycling, anyway, that's another topic. But like changes in configuration of the intersection can be problematic for that very reason. And guide dogs, it's consistency what reinforces the training for the guide dog, the training and the behavior and the work.
Yeah, absolutely. So to bring it back to noise, what noise, well, this is good because like many people don't know this. And I remember like one of the reasons why I thought of this was because in the in-person event that we had at John Innes, and when I asked for feedback, people loved hearing about your experience, Daniella. You opened their minds to a different way of looking at the city. So when we come back to noise and you think about, so we've got lots of different noise sources in the city. So Daniella, what is your worst noise source? Like what is one that when you come across it,
yeah,
your sensory world is overtaken by that? Like what would that be?
I think sirens, modified engines, and construction.
So construction being the actual like hammering and building, or is it the cement truck that's idling, or what would that be?
Construction, like any loud noises that impede my navigation, essentially. Like if I'm on the street and there's a construction, a lot of construction noise, it may actually becomes such a huge barrier that I cannot continue if I'm on my own, or I would try to find an alternate route, because like really it's like fog. I have no idea what's happening or what's coming my way, and like, is there a big machinery? Like it's yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned we'll get to electric cars, but you mentioned that it's hard to locate where the sound, when there's so much sound, you can't pinpoint, you don't actually know where it's coming from. Is it on your left? Is it on your right? And I imagine, again, in the environment, if you are downtown where there's noise canyons everywhere and echoes, like I was so surprised. So just a little side note here, Danielle and I went for a walk and we were in a park and we came up to this building and she goes, "Oh, we're coming up to a building," because she could hear the echo off the building. And it was like, wow, your hearing is so well tuned. So so anyways, I guess it's when there's just so much that it's like a fog. You literally can't hear through it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bob, what about you? What are with having an acquired brain injury, which, everybody thinks, oh, well, brain injuries happen when you fall or whatever, or you have a stroke. No, this was like a sudden bleed in your head. What are the noise sources that bother you the most when you're navigating the city? Or living in the city for that matter? I mean, you mentioned a bunch earlier, but what would be your top ones?
There's so many things going on that I mean, we have to learn to manage them. But motorcycles, I'm not talking about the smaller bikes. I'm talking about the big, like motorcycle gang motorcycles. I
Oh,
mean,
like the Harley lowrider kind of.
those are killers.
Really?
Yes, those are killers. Leaf blowers. And for some reason, dump truck flaps at the back, because
Oh,
those things echo very, very loud. And downtown, I mean, you got a lot of high buildings, so the sounds are bouncing all over the place,
yeah, they are.
right? And we had one. I'll just mention one quick thing. Uh, is that on the decibels of the sounds, when you press the lollipop at the street crossings, at the intersections, is they had in the city of Toronto one building at Davenport Avenue Road area that called and complained because the beeps from the signals from the intersection were too loud and was echoing through the buildings, the residential
Yeah,
buildings at the intersection.
yeah, yeah. We have some pretty good noise canyons, don't we?
And I believe those are all adjusted manually. So if you
Yeah,
think about how those all have to be adjusted to the right amount of decibels and where they're located and how far they are from the curb cuts and so on. I mean,
yeah,
you have to get somebody to do that one by one. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
it's a massive chore.
Okay, so a couple more questions here. We're at 7:46, so we're making good progress. For those online, if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat. Or raise your hand. This is wide open here for you. If you people have burning questions. I want to ask both of you how you feel about the air show. Daniela, why don't you tell us first? How do you feel about the air show?
I hate it. I think it it's outdated. It's should not be happening for so many reasons. Glorifies war, climate change. That's anyway. But as someone who has animals or a dog, they get terrified. Anyway, I could go on and on, but it's an unnecessary source of noise. Can you imagine what it must be like for people who have actually been in war zones?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bob, how do you feel about the air show?
I'm not a big fan of it. I used to be before.
Yeah.
But several years ago, I was attending the Labor Day parade that ended at the exhibition, and we had an F-18, sweep by right under, and the impact it has on you mentally and physically. I would have to sit down after. It was just so
Yeah.
loud. A person in front of me actually went to the ground. So if I was somebody, in certain areas of the world would hear that noise,
Yeah.
it would be frightening. It would be frightening. And I've talked to many individuals from different areas of the world about this particular issue, and the massive trigger
Mm-hmm.
that comes from those noise. It's a lot. It's a lot.
I can absolutely imagine that, or can't imagine that, but I understand. I was in Yorkville doing sound level measurements, and I had my phone and I heard one of those planes go by, and it was 125 decibels on the ground, and there was a family behind me on the rock, and the little kid was like, "I'm scared." And then the girl said, "My ears hurt." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm scared and my ears hurt too, you know?" And so yeah, a lot of people are talking about electric cars these days and electric things. We've got how many different electric things on our bikeways and on our sidewalks, and soon to be more and more on the road. So, Daniela, how do you feel about electric cars, and how do you think they should be managed? Right now, there's a tone that comes out of them. I hear it in my underground parking. It's kind of a, and then a, you know, does that mean anything to you? Like, how do you, as a person who's blind, think electric cars should be managed?
Right. So first, as a pedestrian advocate, I think, more people should be actually getting out of cars instead of replacing them with cars again, but electric. Great. And what about, anyway,
Yeah.
in terms of how they should be managed, consistency is key for predictability, and predictability is important for accessibility and for safety. Those low tones that I hear now more because more people, there's more of them, or more electric cars, they don't really mean much. I mean, I can hear, so I know, okay, so there's one of these things in the vicinity. But unlike like combustion engines, and they, you don't know in which direction necessarily they're coming. You don't hear them. You know one is in the vicinity, but again, you can't hear. So standards, governments and international standards should be mandated, from my perspective, for electric cars. It doesn't matter what company. Cars are, they have proven to kill us for so many reasons. So can um can they, as protecting public space, they need to be better regulated. It's not about vanity and being different and like, oh, the sound to make you feel special.
Yeah.
We are in a different time. So standards for when they are moving in different directions, right? Like, are they braking? Are they accelerating? And also, of course, I am terrified knowing just with the notion that they can accelerate from 0 to like whatever,
Yes.
60 kilometers in like such a short time. And where are they? And then knowing everything about people not paying attention and supposed features for kind of automating some aspects of driving. It's terrifying. It's like increasingly society is adding barriers
Yes.
to my world. When I came to Toronto, it was not like that.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the doc. Okay, so I've got one question that I'm going to ask then for both of you guys again, and that is, so Bob, over to you. What do you think we can collectively do to normalize disabilities in our culture, and help people, whether it's something that people can see or can't see, even a minor disability, like, well, it's not minor if you fall down, but I'm saying balance issues or those kind of things. So Bob, what do you think that we as a group, so for example, No More Noise, what do you think we could do that would help further the conversation collectively?
Well, I think it's got to start at a medical end. We have many of our community members with invisibility, with invisible disabilities that
Yeah.
you wouldn't even know. I'd be sitting on a bus, you'd have no idea that I had a brain injury. I think it's about awareness, and it's awareness that starts at the three levels of government, the municipal level and the provincial level, and most important, the federal level. And to be able to get this information to our politicians and get this information to our politicians, but not just get them to listen, but to get them to hear what we're saying. And things are
Those are two different things.
absolutely different. We all know that from three levels of government, and things are starting to change. And I think COVID brought a lot this more to light, that we got to start listening to individuals with lived experience, because those are the experts and those are the teachers.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Daniela, what do you think we could do to, maybe for you, is more normalized blindness?
Yeah, I agree with Bob regarding awareness. Keeping to talk about it. If we think about it, right, like about 20% of the population has some kind of disability.
Yeah.
And people are getting older, and with age, people will get more disabilities. And disabilities have been hidden and stigmatized and everything. It's recently really that through legislation that accessibility and disabilities are more normalized, or at least are more spoken about. I think being purposely inclusive about it when working on something, like I work in the digital accessibility space. So I think everyone can do things to like just think, oh, is this accessible? Like, what if someone with a visual disability, are we sending this material to them? Or in case of noise, right? Like keep talking about the proportion of people, in this case in Canada, that have disabilities, because really it's not like I think many people know someone with a disability, and it's like just tipping, kind of walking around it and like talking silently because we don't want to offend is unhelpful. So, Ingrid, I commend you for actually talking about it in as part of your advocacy. And I think it's not, having allies, people without known disabilities actually helping to do this work is helpful, right? Like, yeah, it's normalizing. The more we talk about something, the more awareness we create, and thinking about accessibility by design, not at the end, oh, no one thought about where how is this going to impact someone with a disability. Also thinking that if something is accessible for someone with a disability, it will be better for everyone else at the same time. Just like the curb cuts, like the ramps, they were there for people using wheelchairs. Now everyone uses them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been enlightening. I am just so glad to have both of you in my life and share and being willing to come online and share your experiences with me and with everyone else. I'm finding that as I try and reach out into I'm just going to call it the disability space, whether it's somebody who's in a wheelchair, whether it's a physical or mental disability. And I find that there's, as it is in the general population, there's apathy. There's people who there's shame. There's I don't want to draw attention to my disability, or I've done this before and nothing's happened. And I really want to create a space for people like you and like me and like others to just talk about how noise impacts them, and whether you have a disability or not. I mean, sure, Daniela, this is, how you navigate is through your hearing, but your body is receiving exactly the same sound waves as mine, as Bob's, as Donna's and Mark's, and it's impacting your health just like it impacts mine. So in that sense, we are all the same. Noise affects all of us the same way. It's just how we actually move through the city really starts to change. Really starts to change. So I am just changing a couple things here. Oops. And oops, cancel. I'm trying to, Daniela, I had you spotlighted and now I'm trying to stop the spotlight. Here we go, add spotlight. So I'm just gonna do this. Oh, there we go. Now I got my boxes. Okay. So with that, I'm going to basically wrap up a little bit and say thank you very much. We're at 7:57. In the chat, I put a couple links. We've got some things going on here at No More Noise Toronto. We have an initiative with Toronto Public Health right now, and that is to make noise part of their strategic priorities. If you have ever deputed or thought about deputing to a city council committee, which means speaking to them, on June 1st, I have a prep session for all of us to depute on June 4th to talk about how noise needs to be a part of Toronto Public Health strategic priorities. And I also have right now, the City of Toronto asked me to help them find locations for illegal muffler blitzes. So enforcement events. And so there's in the chat, I put a link on how you can add your location for that. And I do believe that it is it's screen reader accessible. So Daniela, that should be good for you too. I always try to remember that everybody deserves to have a voice when it comes to reducing noise. So with that, I'm going to thank you, Daniela and Bob. You two are just fabulous. And I thank everyone else for coming online today. And I wish you a good rest of the evening. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.